Council, one of the aid agencies behind the report on the violence that's been driving refugees out of Syria. And he joins us now from Amman. Carl, thank you very much for your time. Can you just explain to us then why things were so bad in 2015?
Well, you've just quoted a litany of shame, really, that shows in figures how the situation has really deteriorated on the streets and the fields of Syria. Uh, 200,000 houses have been completely destroyed. That's a 20% increase over the previous year. An additional 400,000 children ended up out of school because of the fighting that's going on. In November alone, over 2,000 people were killed in the wake of the Russian airstrikes. So it's been a really, really hard year for the Syrians on the ground. And our appeal now, at this moment of hope, where there is a very fragile ceasefire holding across Syria, is to the world leaders to stop the men on the ground, stop the shooting. This is not enough. This fragile ceasefire won't hold unless it is followed up with a comprehensive peace plan, a political plan that brings about the people around the negotiating table to talk and stop the shooting. The men in suits have to stop the men with the guns.
So what was behind the figures, though, in 2015? Why was 2015 worse than the years that had preceded it?
We've seen an escalation in the fighting across the board, both on the ground and in the scope of military actions. The very members sitting around the table of the UN Security Council, which has been responsible for passing very important UN resolutions to stop the fighting, they have been the ones that have also been fueling the fire. They have been transferring arms and weapons. They've been intervening militarily in varying degrees across Syria. So this has escalated over the last year, in contrast with their declared promises and their declared wisdom that there is no military way out of the Syrian crisis. It is only through peaceful political negotiations that we can bring an end to this crisis. People out there Syrians are desperate, not just in Syria, but also in the region. I'm in Jordan. Thousands of Syrians here are desperate now, taking desperate trips to Europe. For the first time, our Syrian staff in Syria are telling us they can hear the birds singing in the streets and fields of Syria. It's the first time in 5 years that there is some silence out there, and the political leaders have to follow up on this and not let the Syrians down again, as they've done for the last 5 years.
Well, are you hopeful then that this cessation of hostilities is the beginning of the end of the war in Syria, or are you cautiously optimistic? How would you describe the cessation right now?
We cannot but hope at this moment. This is an unprecedented moment of hope in these 5 years, and we are really calling on the leaders responsible to follow up on this. We cannot but hope. The Syrians are also seeing this as a moment of hope. So we have to stand with them and do everything in our powers. The people sitting around the negotiating table, they have the obligation, they have the power, and they have the influence, but also the moral duty to bring an end to this. They know it, and they know they can do it.
And let's talk about the refugees that have left Syria. You're there in Jordan. There's many there. They're in Turkey. They're in Greece as well. What needs to be done? What does the international community need to do from here to help those people who aren't in Syria?
Well, again, it is only peace that can stabilize the region, that can help them also go back. But in the meantime, we need to step up the aid that is reaching these people. A lot of people have been struck off the aid lists because there hasn't been enough funding for the response to this crisis. But also the host countries, both here in the region in the Middle East, but also in Europe, where these refugees are arriving. They need to be sheltered, they need asylum, they need to be protected. They are fleeing extreme violence, incredible conditions, and it's the time to stand with them, make sure that there is peace, that they can go back home eventually in peace and security. But in the meantime, let's not forget our obligations in making their life, helping them live in dignity wherever they seek their shelter.
Okay, Carl Skembry, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Japan is marking the 5th anniversary.
Sir, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
A tsunami that left tens of thousands of people dead.